I've taken the GR86 drifting, and I've taken it to the track. But I also use the GR86 as my daily driver. I take my kids to school and drop them off at daycare. I go to work with it. I do pretty much everything I would normally do on a daily with my GR86. Now today I want to talk a little bit about what makes a good daily driver and why I switched to the GR86. And I thought it'd be kind of interesting to show you what I used as my old daily and kind of see how they stack up to those criteria of what makes a good daily. And my old daily is right here. It's a 2009 Corolla S. It was a great car. I've driven it for about 16 years now. Actually just right up to before I purchased the GR86. So I love this car, but it's time to switch to something a little bit different. And I'll show you what both of them have to offer and why I switched from the Corolla to the GR86 as my daily. So let's get started. And if you could, please hit the subscribe button down below and hit the like button as well. It helps us out greatly and it'll cost you nothing. Thank you very much and we appreciate you watching. So there are a few things that you might consider before you pick out a daily driver or a car that you want to purchase. And those things are budget, safety, reliability, comfort, space of the car, drivability, features of the car, and fuel economy. Those all factor into picking out a daily driver. Both of these cars have a lot of those things checkmarked, and we'll just go through those right now. But before we do, I just kind of want to talk about the different specs of both of these cars, the Corolla and the GR86. So let's start with the Corolla really quick. So the Corolla is about a 16-year-old car. It's a 2009 Corolla S model, and it has a 1.8 liter straight four that makes around 132 horses and has 128 pound-foot of torque. It weighs approximately around 2,767 pounds to about 2,822 pounds. It can vary depending on the features that it has, and it also has a 4-speed automatic for this particular car. Now let's kind of take a look at the GR86. Now I've talked about the GR86 before, and you can check out that video right here. But this is a 2024 GR86, and it comes with a 2.4 liter flat four that makes around 228 horses and 184 pound-foot of torque. And it weighs around 2,811 pounds to about 2,868 pounds. Now I also got the 6-speed manual version for the GR86. So I went from an automatic to a manual. So right there you can see that I kind of shifted the dynamic of how I drive. In the Corolla, since it's an automatic, I can just kind of set it to drive and go about my day. I don't have to think about gears or anything like that. But in the GR86, since it's a 6-speed manual, I have to kind of think about shifting gears. Now, the more you get used to a manual, the less you have to think about it, and it's more muscle memory. But you do have to think about what gear you need to be in, and you need to think about shifting in a manual more than you do in an automatic. But that's a very little thing that changed in the whole dynamic of driving these two cars as a daily. Now that you know a little bit more about both cars, let's get back to the important parts about picking a daily driver: budget, fuel economy, safety, reliability, space, comfort, how it drives, drivability, and features of both cars. And as we go through the list, let's kind of get into these cars and we can kind of talk a little bit more about how these stack up to each other. So let's start here in the Corolla S, and I'll jump back and forth from the Corolla to the GR86 as we kind of touch on each of the things on the list for a daily driver. Now let's talk about budget. This is probably one of the most important things that you can consider when you're purchasing a daily driver. When I first purchased this car, it was $19,000. Now you can probably find a used one between $5,000 to $11,000. As for the GR86, it is a bit more expensive. It runs around $30,000 to about $36,000, depending on the model you get. The base model, the premium model, or the special edition model that they're offering for the year. For used versions of the GR86, they're still fairly expensive. They can run around $23,000 to about $30,000 for a used GR86. Now, if you go to Gen 1, like a GT86 or something like that, yeah, you can find those around $10 to about $18,000. Now, something else to look at when you're looking at a daily driver is fuel economy. And the Corolla S gets about 27 miles to a gallon in the city and 35 miles to a gallon on highway. And on average, I actually get 31.8 miles to a gallon with the Corolla S. So pretty good fuel economy. The GR86 definitely doesn't beat the Corolla S in fuel economy. It gets 21 miles to the gallon in the city and 31 miles on the highway. On average, I get about 26 miles per the gallon. So not too bad compared to the 31.8 miles to the gallon though. I mean, that's very good. On top of that, I didn't mention this when I was talking about the Corolla S, but the Corolla doesn't have to pump premium gas. It can just pump normal unleaded gas. While the GR86, it requires you to pump premium gas. So it's a little bit more expensive when you're purchasing gas than it is for the Corolla S. Now, I kind of want to talk about the next two things kind of together, but they are something that you're going to look at when you're looking at a daily, and those are safety and reliability. For the most part, the safety and reliability on both cars are pretty good, but at the time there was a big recall for a sticky gas pedal. If you remember, around that time, there was a lot of news where the car would get stuck and just keep accelerating and it wouldn't stop, even if you pressed on the brake pedal. Toyota had to do a mass recall for it. As for reliability, it's a very reliable car. I have 210,381 miles now on the odometer. It drives great and is very dependable. As for safety and reliability in the GR86, as of right now, there's no safety recalls on the GR86. Now, although they don't have any recalls, they probably should think about the RTV issues in these GR86s, and of course oil starvation as well, and see what they can't do about that. But it does affect the safety and reliability of these cars, especially the reliability. If you're getting oil starvations, you're gonna ruin your car. Since this is a newer car, there are a lot more safety features as well, such as lane assist and collision detection. So that's something that's additional to the safety aspect of the GR86. Reliability, it's fairly reliable. Most of it is reliable. Like I said, the only thing that's kind of something that Toyota and Subaru should consider about for safety and reliability is the RTV issue and the oil starvation issue that's going on in these cars. Now let's talk a little bit about space. The Corolla is a little bit larger than the GR86. The dimensions are 178.7 inches long and 69.3 inches wide and 57.7 inches tall. So for a compact, it's not too bad. The cargo space is 12.3 cubic feet, so quite a bit of room back there for you to put stuff. Of course, 4 doors, so it's very easy to get your kids in and out of the car. Let me show you that right now. So one of the things that's very convenient about a 4-door car is that getting your kids in for daycare or taking them to school is very easy because they can just get into the car and there's much more space. So let me kind of show you that really quickly. So as you can see, it's a lot of space. I don't have to bend down very much. My sons can kind of go through. They have their own door. And my older son that goes to school, he can just open his own door and step out. If there's a car seat here, I could get my son in very easily and buckle him in. Now let me show you that in the GR86. With the GR86, it's a little bit more difficult to get my sons in and out of the car for daycare or school. To get them in, I have to kind of move this chair back and then kind of maneuver them in or allow my son to kind of step in and then get into the car seat before I put them in. Let me show you that really quickly. As you can see here, it's a little bit more tight, less inconvenient. I have to kind of bend down quite a bit, and once my son gets in, he has to climb into his car seat, and I kind of have to twist and get in and then buckle him in. As well as my older son, to get into his booster, there is a little bit of maneuvering that he has to do, as well as I need to push the front seat up a little bit so that he has a little bit more room for his legs. But they're still fairly small, so this kind of works out for me as of right now. Of course, when they get older, this car probably won't work very well for them. As for space, this is a smaller car than the Corolla is. The Corolla is 4 doors. This is a 2-door car. As for dimensions go, it's 167.9 inches long, 69.9 inches wide. So actually a little bit wider than the Corolla, which is kind of surprising, but yeah, just a little bit. And then 51.6 inches tall. As far as the trunk goes, it's only 6.26 cubic feet, so it doesn't hold much. But as you can see here, I did go to Costco with it. I did do a Costco run with it. Of course, I wasn't buying like big rolls of toilet paper or anything like that, or anything really, really big. So those things probably wouldn't fit in this car unless I put it in the passenger seat or something like that. While I was at Costco, I did also see a Supra pull next to me. It was very nice. So maybe space isn't very important depending on who you are. So, I mean, if you're going to Costco with Supra, I'm going to Costco with GR86, right? So, now as for features, there's not a lot of features in here. I don't have heated seats or anything. It's not automatic seats. I guess the only thing is automatic windows. There is a sunroof here that's pretty nice. Heated side mirrors and everything like that, if you want to consider all those features. It's just a simple radio. It has a CD player. So it's 2009, so the CD players were a nice thing to have. There's no real connection to your smartphone or anything like that. Back then, there's an auxiliary port for your phone if you have a headset. Now you'll probably have to do something like a Bluetooth to auxiliary or something Bluetooth to one of those CD drives that you can connect to. But other than that, it's fairly simple. There's a volume button and changing your tracks or your radio station on the wheel. So very 2009. It's very simple. Not a lot of buttons, not a lot of options for infotainment. As for features goes, there's a ton more features than the Corolla S. Of course, they don't have a CD player anymore. They got rid of it, but you have a whole infotainment system. There is connections to your phone in the center console here in the GR86, as well as you have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It also connects to your phone, so you can see the health of the car on your phone. So a lot of different features in the GR86. For the next two things, I also want to put these together: comfort and, of course, how it drives, or drivability. So let's go for a drive and let's talk about comfort and drivability. As I said before, this is an automatic, so I kind of just set it to drive and I am off and going. I don't really have to think much about shifting gears or anything like that, so that's kind of something off of my mind. I just concentrate on the road. It's fairly nice drive. It's fairly comfortable. It takes bumps pretty easily. It's fairly quiet for a car, not too loud. You can still hear some outside noise, of course, but not too bad. As for maneuverability, it's very easy to move. It is a compact car, so it's very easy to move. Now it only has 132 horsepower, so it's just enough for you to kind of get to speed as you're driving down the road. It's just what you need. As for comfortability, these seats are very comfortable. I can sit in these for hours at a time. I have sat in these at hours at a time. I've driven long distances with this Corolla. I've driven this car all the way up to Calgary to visit my brother in Canada. So it's a very comfortable car. It's very reliable. It's very dependable, and it can go long distances. It is a front-wheel drive car, so in the winter it does fairly well in snow. In cold weather, right now it's fairly cold, it's doing very well. And my heater and my AC still works, so the comfort is still really nice in this car. With 210,000 miles on it, I mean, the car's running great. I would also say like this is kind of like a typical drive, like your everyday drive. You're driving this every day, but you know there is, I would have to say, a little bit of a fun factor that is missing in this drive. As I said before, this is a 6-speed manual, so it does take some thought about changing gears while I am driving. So there is a little bit more focus on what gear I need to be in while I'm driving. Now that also becomes muscle memory, so you're not going to be thinking about it too much. After you've been driving a manual for a while, it's something that when you've kind of just started driving a manual again, you do kind of think about it. After a while, it's all muscle memory. It's pretty much become muscle memory for me now. As for like how smooth the car is, it's fairly smooth. Again, it's just how you drive a manual, how you shift through the gears. The more I drive it, I feel like the more I'm learning how to drive the car better. So it actually kind of gives me a feedback of how I'm driving. The more and more I'm driving, the smoother the car gets. As for like bumps on the road, this is a sports car. The suspension is a little bit stiffer than the Corolla. I do feel more bumps, but I actually enjoy a stiffer ride in cars. I feel like I get more feedback from the road, so I like that. Some people don't. For me, this car is fairly comfortable. The bucket seats hold me in. I've driven to Hollet. It's about a 2.5-hour drive there and a 2.5-hour drive back, so it's fairly comfortable. I didn't have any complaints while I was going to Hollet for the track event. But for like drivability, it's a very agile car. It's very responsive, and I feel like I have a lot of control wherever I want to kind of go. It's kind of like it feels like a go-kart. It just goes in the direction you point it. So it's very maneuverable and comfort. So since it's brand new, there's heat, there's AC, so it feels very comfortable, and you can kind of just set it at a temperature, and it knows if it's too cold, it'll turn on the heat for you. And if it's hot, it knows that it needs to turn on the AC to get it to the temperature you set it at. So it's just kind of set the temperature that you like and you're comfortable with, and just kind of forget about it. Now, I mentioned this while I was driving in the Corolla, that the Corolla is enjoyable. I like the car, but there is a fun factor that's kind of missing in the car. The GR86 has a fun factor that the Corolla S does not have. And I can't explain to you that feeling unless you get that feeling on a certain car yourself. It's just something that happens. Whatever car that you enjoy, there is this feeling that you get. You'll look at that car, and when you get in, or before you even get in, you get a smile on your face. And this is the feeling I get with this car. Now that we've talked about everything that people consider when they're looking at a daily driver, I don't think that the GR86 necessarily fits in all those categories. When I see the car, in my mind, I go, wow, I get to drive this car. I can't believe that. And if you have that, I feel like a lot of the things that you would think about for your daily kind of goes away. Now, it's also something that I would say to think about is it's all about what you're needing at the time in your life, basically. I needed that Corolla back in 2009. I mean, I drove around a lot of friends. I needed a fuel efficient car. I needed to pay cheaper gas. I didn't want to pay for premium gas at that time. I mean, I had just gotten out of college and I had my first job, and that's my first car. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my Corolla S, and that's a car that I'm gonna keep around forever. I'm gonna pretty much drive it until it dies, basically. With that, let me know in the comments what cars you enjoy driving on a daily, and what cars put a smile on your face when you drive it. Also, be sure to like the video and subscribe to Gas and Watts. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.